Will you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Mark. Right. Eight. Over. Mark.
Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. That was a Chapin JROTC color guard, and the members were Brianna Gilbert, Tyson Robinson, Martine Septina, and Barbara Smith, and their instructor was Lieutenant Colonel Victor M. Diaz. Thank you very much. So before we get started, I just want to go over the agenda briefly with you. When I introduce Congressman O'Rourke, after he has an opportunity to give you updates and talk to you a little bit about what's going on in D.C., then we will open it up to questions and answers. We have two standing mics on either side, one on this side and one right here. And so if you'd like to ask a question during that time, please stand behind the mics and we'll make sure that we get to your question. If you're uncomfortable standing, then we will come to you. So we'll go one mic, and then we'll have Esteban Terrazas, who's right back there, one of our staff members. He'll go to you and he'll take the mic. I also want to remind you to please make sure that you signed in. It's really important for us to be able to continuously communicate with you and give you updates and let you know what we're working on. And so if we have your email or your mailing address, we're able to do that. So without further ado, if you could please help me welcome Congressman Beto O'Rourke.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all here. This is our ninth Cynthia regular town hall meeting. We've had one every single month since we were sworn in on January 3rd. We've had two Veterans Town Hall meetings in addition, and then 2 weeks ago we had a special town hall meeting on Syria and the country's response to the crisis taking place there. We had almost 200 people show up to that one downtown at the Community Foundation. This is, just by initial glance, probably the smallest group that we've ever had show up, which I think can be a really good thing. It'll allow us to address each person's concerns, hear your ideas, and give me a chance to answer your questions and be accountable to you. So I appreciate everyone showing up. I know this is a busy time of year, kids starting out in school, lots of things going on in your lives. So the fact that you took some time out to be with us today and participate in your government means a lot to all of us, and I think it means a lot to the community as we continue to try to make it better. Let me introduce some people who helped make today possible, and some important people that I want to acknowledge. First of all, our hosts. I want to acknowledge Vice Principal Marsh. I don't know if he's here in the room today.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Marsh, thank you for being here, and I understand on Monday you will assume the principal's office at Austin High School.
Yes, sir. And
Okay, we wish you luck. Good luck to doing that. Thank you for hosting us. I also had the pleasure of meeting Manuel Viagran, the custodian who prepared, made sure that we were ready today, and is going to clean up after us. So I want to thank Mr. Viagran for being part of the hosting committee here as well. We also are joined by several important people, important especially to the veterans in our community. First, we have John Mendoza, who's the director of VHA here in El Paso. He's been on the job, John, for 10 months, 11 months, so not quite a year, and he has been to every single one of our town hall meetings, our general interest town hall meetings, as well as our veteran-specific town hall meetings, has been incredibly responsive to every request I've personally made of him, our office has made of him. Doesn't mean that we always get the answer that we desire, but he's very responsive, he's been very helpful, and I fully believe that he's committed to turning our local VA around and making that a much more responsive organization. So So I want to thank you for being here. Rodney Thompson, who's our local VBA administrator. Rodney, where are you? Rodney's here in the back. You know, if you have a loved one or family member or a neighbor, and that may be a family member who is not a loved one. There's some people in my family who I don't really know. If you know somebody who's waiting on a service-connected disability claim, oftentimes they're working directly with Rodney or somebody who works for him in the local VBA office. He has been to all or almost all of our town hall meetings, and certainly has been to all of our veterans town hall meetings. And that's really important to me, and I hope it's important to the veterans who are here as well, because we do have a very significant problem at VBA. And it wasn't a problem of Rodney's making or necessarily current administration's making. This is a problem years, if not decades, in the making, but it has resulted in wait times to hear back on a service-connected disability claim that are well past 400 days now and moving closer towards 500 days every day. We'll have an update on that at our Veterans Town Hall later. But our very special guest when it comes to veterans issues today is a man named John Limpos. And John, if you don't mind standing up, John is the director of the regional office in Waco, which is a 10, 11, 12-hour drive from here. Pretty far away, but very important to the veterans that he serves throughout the state of Texas, and for us, most importantly, here in El Paso. Cynthia Cano, our district director, who spoke at the outset of the meeting, and I had a chance to visit with John a couple of months back, meet his team, review his operation, let him know that this community is holding him accountable, and accountability I think he accepts and welcomes. And it is meaningful that he's here today, again, not just at our Veterans Town Hall, which is this afternoon at 1 o'clock at the Trans Mountain El Paso Community College campus, but that he's here today just to listen to general community concerns. So, Mr. Limpos, we welcome you to El Paso. Glad that you're here. I also have the pleasure and honor of introducing, I want to make sure that I didn't leave anybody out, of introducing our new superintendent for the El Paso Independent School District, Mr. Juan Cabrera. And you all have met him in the newspaper, in the news. You may have met him at one of the town hall meetings that he has already hosted in the short time that he's been here, including one that he held right here at Chapin High School. I told him when he reached out to me to introduce himself that I'd love for him to come to our next town hall meeting, give him a chance and you a chance to connect. And I wonder, Juan, if you wouldn't mind standing up, coming over, and maybe saying a few words just to introduce yourself to those of you who have yet to meet Mr. Cabrera. Someone I've got to spend a little bit of time with in addition to the phone call. I'm very excited about what he wants to do for this community, for the school district, most importantly for the kids, but the parents and the taxpayers, everyone who depends on a well-running school district. And last thing before I give him the microphone, he just gave a great interview to a local online newspaper called Newspaper Tree. It's online at newspapertree.com. If you haven't read it yet, it's great. And I really love what he's talking about doing for EPIC. So, Mr. Cabrera, I'll turn it over to you for a few. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes. I don't want to take your time, and I've got plenty of my own town halls, so it'd be nice to sit and listen to somebody else. Thanks so much for coming out on behalf of EPISD, Chapin High School. I want to thank you, and I want to, we've already said this, but any of our facilities you want to use for any of these sorts of events, very much supportive at any time. We want to be part of the democratic process. Happy that you're doing this. This is our first town hall, but we're going to try to attend as many as we can. Even getting the teenagers up early is not easy. So we're committed to Bentham and Congressman O'Rourke. So just a couple of minutes, I want to talk about the Secretary of Education came to Trans Mountain just a couple of weeks ago. You might have seen that in the paper. And when he came, he asked me about the concerns we had about El Paso ISD and what we wanted to do and how we were turning a corner, turning a page, and we were committed to making sure that this became a strong district. And right after that, I reached out to Congressman O'Rourke, and he had already had some conversations with the Secretary. So I want you to know that we're already hard at work behind the scenes. We committed to corner the Secretary and make sure to hold him to his word. He promised me, he gave me his phone number, said that he was going to reach out to us and give us some support to the district, to the community, to the region. A Congressman O'Rourke had already reached out to him, so we've already made that connection. And, his job is much broader than mine, but I want you to know that as a new superintendent, somebody that comes from a business background as well as education, I don't look at EPISD as just a siloed educational institution. It's a community, it's part of a community, part of a partnership. And the way I look at the district, and the way we all should look at the district is, we're a part of building a great city. If you don't have, we have a lot in common, right? If you don't have, we believe in education, that's very important. We want economic development. And if we don't have an educated workforce, we're not going to have strong economic development. We want to work hard to bring good companies to El Paso so that the people we educate and go to college can stay here and work, right? We want safety, we want security, we want all those things at our schools. So we definitely share a lot in common. And I'm focused on working on all those initiatives. And I want you to know that one of our major focuses at EPISD going forward, which is very important to all of you, is that we're focused on raising good citizens, young adults who are engaged, who are involved in the democratic process, who are ready to go to work if they want to, who are ready to go to college if they want to, who are not just kids that are good at taking tests. And that's important as part of the scorecard, we understand. But more importantly, we want good citizens that are going to share our roads, our schools, our stores with us. Those are the kind of folks that we want to try to raise through our district and be a part of, along with the community. And that's going to be our focus. So together, we have a lot of the same goals, and we'll look forward to working together. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's really significant that we have our new superintendent who has just been on the job a matter of weeks here, listening to general interest, community concerns at this town hall. We welcome you to all future town halls.
Thank you.
I won't point him out because I know he didn't come here to be singled out, but when we were talking about a theme that you just ended on in terms of holistic education, not just test scores, but producing a better citizen, I talked about Gary Berglund and Coronado and the exceptional work that they did in getting students interested in the political process. I participated in more than 24 debates during the time that I ran for Congress, and the debate that he helped to produce with his students at Coronado High School was exceptional. So I'll leave it to him to introduce himself to you. He's here today,
Okay.
but again, even though I've already given his name, I want to respect his privacy and allow him to make that initiative. So let's do this. I'll spend 15 minutes or so just giving you the roundup from the last time that I held a general interest town hall meeting, which was sometime in August. And I'll turn it over to you, and I'll answer any question, concern, hear your ideas and suggestions that you might have. We'll try to wrap up within an hour. We'll stay longer. I'll stay longer, and you're under no obligation to, of course. And then after we close public questions and comments, I'll stay afterwards because sometimes there are some people who want to address an issue with me in private and don't feel comfortable raising it publicly. So let me start perhaps with some of the most recent and most disappointing news, and then work back towards earlier in this past month since we've all met. Yesterday, I voted on what's known as a continuing resolution. This is what, if you all don't know this term of art, and I wasn't really familiar with it before I got to Congress, honestly. If you're not familiar with it, this is the authority that funds your federal government, the discretionary money, specifically nearly $1 trillion, when you don't have a budget. And your federal government has not had a budget, I think, in over 4 years now. And who knows whose fault that is, and not here to assess blame. Plenty of it to go around between the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. But suffice it to say, we don't have a budget. And those of us who own businesses, who are employed by businesses, who try to manage a budget in our households, we all understand how ridiculous that is, but that is the state of affairs. So the way the government is funded when you don't have a budget is through an act of Congress between the two houses, the Senate and the House, called a continuing resolution, which essentially funds government services and payrolls at the same level as the prior year, with perhaps some adjustments. Now, the fiscal year begins October 1st, which is, what is that, a week? 10 days. 10 days from today, so almost a little bit more than a week. So if we are not able to find some common ground and pass a continuing resolution that is supported by both chambers and the White House, our government will, fiscally speaking, cease to function. We won't be able to pay our bills, pay our employees, pay our commitments. There won't be funding to run the government, and that is what in shorthand is referred to by the news media as a shutdown of the federal government. And we have experienced shutdowns before. There was a famous shutdown in the 90s when there was an impasse between the Gingrich House of Representatives and the Clinton White House, and ultimately the country was able to overcome that shutdown, and we actually ended that decade for the first time in a long time, and the first time since, and the only time since, with a surplus. So as bad as things look now, you know, they can certainly get better, and we have the past as prologue to perhaps our current situation. So yesterday we voted on a continuing resolution, but this was not what's called a clean continuing resolution, which just says fund the government at the current levels for the next so many days. And in this case, I think it's until mid-December. This continuing resolution said fund the government at the current levels, which includes the sequester, which means uncertainty and lower pay and furloughs for hundreds of thousands of federal employees, including those here in El Paso. And let me just say this, because I've been in a lot of town halls when I wasn't in Congress, and I go on the political forums and I watch the political commentary shows, and sometimes there is promoted a perception of federal employees as somehow being less worthy than private sector employees. Like somehow these guys, because they work for the government, got a special deal or a special break. Well, let me tell you this. These are the men and women who work at William Beaumont Army Hospital. These are the men and women who work at the VA. These are the men and women who take care of our wounded warriors when they're coming back from Afghanistan or other conflicts our country has been through. These are the men and women who man the line with the Border Patrol, who work at our ports of entry with CBP, who are the prison guards at La Tuna, who work in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid to ensure that people who have paid into those programs receive a return back on the investment that they've made. So these are people who make our country work, and these are people who, because of Congress and our country's inability to get its budget act together, have gone without any kind of pay increase, a cost of living increase, while gasoline, rent, every other cost you can imagine, including what it costs to put food on the table when you buy it from the grocery store, all those costs have gone up, their pay has not. And to add insult to injury, as we've been unable to find common ground on this budget impasse, we've started to cut their pay via unpaid furlough days where they're not able to work. So I want to put that myth to rest. I don't think anybody here necessarily believes in that, but I've heard it enough where I feel like I need to strongly address that. So this CR that passed yesterday would keep in place the sequester that gives these federal employees a pay cut, makes their future uncertain, makes it very hard for them to provide the services that we depend on, much less lead normal lives that some of us who have jobs in the private sector perhaps take for granted. Not only does it do that, they tied to it a complete defunding of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And now it does not matter, in my opinion, what we think about Obamacare, whether it was a wise policy that was passed by the House of Representatives, that was passed by the Senate, that was signed into law by the President, that was confirmed by the Supreme Court as being constitutionally valid. It is the law of the land. And what separates us from the rest of the world, in my opinion, is that we are a nation of laws and not a nation of men or women or people who are exceptional to those laws. And so that is the law of the land. And through the democratic process, the House of Representatives has tried no fewer than 42 times to repeal or defund or overturn Obamacare. Unsuccessfully each time, because although they passed it, it never passed out of the Senate, which is controlled by Democrats. And there is no way in the world that the president, whose signature piece of legislation this is, would ever sign its repeal into law. So these are political acts so that people who vote for repeal or overturning can go back to their districts where that's popular, stand up in town hall meetings like this and say, I voted to stick it to the president and get rid of Obamacare. Everybody goes wild, applause, nothing changes. The law stays in place. We move forward towards the beginning of its implementation, which is October 1st in 10 days. So, like it or not, and there's lots for me not to like in the law. There's lots that I like about the law, but it is far from perfect, and I'm the first to acknowledge that. Like it or not, it is the law. And I think our time is best spent improving that law, making it better, fixing the serious flaws that exist within it, versus what some in the Democratic Party want to do, which is keep it status quo, versus what some in the Republican Party want to do, which is to repeal it completely. Neither of those are politically viable or even possible. So when this CR measure is attached to a defunding of Obamacare, which passes the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, there is close to, if not an absolute 0% chance that that is going to pass the Senate. What is likely to happen this coming week is the Senate will take this measure up on Tuesday or Wednesday. They will strip out the defunding of Obamacare. They'll pass that clean, what's called a clean continuing resolution, or CR. They'll send it back to the House of Representatives. And at that point, the Speaker, John Boehner, will have a decision to make. Does he accept what the Senate has passed? Does he decide that he's going to fund the government prior to its shutdown on October 1st? Or does he take it to the brink, continue this game of chicken, and reattach the defunding of Obamacare and send it back to the Senate? Stay tuned. We don't know. But that's why I was originally scheduled to be in El Paso all of next week, meeting with constituents in the district, visiting large employers, meeting with people in our offices, going to the VA to see how John is doing. And instead, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C., playing my small part in this incredibly silly drama to fund the most powerful country in the world. And I think we can all agree this is no way to run things. So that's a dismal update on where your federal government is, but I think it's a fairly accurate picture of where we stand. As Susie knows, I'm not a big fan of the continuing resolution we have right now, which includes the sequester. It is, by all measures, stupid. Not only does it hurt the people that I just described, but every notable economist who has looked at this has confirmed that it provides an excessive drag on our national economy, just as we're trying to come out of this Great Recession. So when Susie's colleagues at the VA or William Beaumont aren't receiving pay for a day's work that they were hired to do, that's money that's not circulating in the El Paso economy. Those are groceries that aren't bought at Albertsons. That's a meal that's not purchased at Leo's. Those are clothes that are not purchased at the mall. You all understand the implication for everybody who depends on those activities. So I want to make sure you understand why I voted against that, why I think that this is more political theater than anything else, but why it has real serious implications for the successful management of our federal government. And I'm hopeful, and I'm not a partisan person. I don't blame this on Republicans. I don't blame this on Democrats. I do blame this on the current system that values political point scoring over making things work for the people in our country. So I have my ideal of what I want a budget to look like. I'm willing to move from that to, as we all want, to help be one of the adults in the room, to pass what is necessary so that we can continue to function. And I hope in that window that we have from whenever we pass the CR to whenever the CR concludes, which may be December, that in that time we're able to work out some larger compromise or this grand bargain that we've been hearing about. Earlier in the week, I had another vote on what I think was another very irresponsible bill. This was a bill that would cut the SNAP program. And the SNAP, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is the food stamps program. Now, for years, decades, the Farm Bill was the most popular, successful, bipartisan piece of major legislation that passed Congress each year. And the Farm Bill this year, about $1 trillion, was agriculture subsidies, direct payments, insurance for farmers to make sure that we get food to our dinner tables at a reasonable cost and that we support farmers in our country. And it was also this food stamps or SNAP program. For the first time in its history, not in its history, but for the first time in a really long time, that Farm Bill failed. That union of rural interests and urban interests was finally broken by partisan politics. And again, not assigning blame to either side. I'm sure there's a lot to go around. So they split off the agriculture subsidy part, that passed the House, and they brought back the nutrition program, the SNAP program, and we voted on that this week. The cuts that passed the House, and I voted against it, were $40 billion over the next 10 years. And again, I got to combat a popular myth that I see around here that people who receive SNAP benefits are somehow lazy or unwilling to work or are gaming the system. Are there examples of that? Certainly. There are examples of that in any federal benefits program, whether we're talking about the VA, whether we're talking about Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, UMC, Thomason, you name it. There are bad actors out there who are going to take advantage of resources and benefits that are made available to them. But 92% of the beneficiaries of the SNAP program are working adults, children, senior citizens, or veterans. So that leaves 8% who are unemployed adults, who we hope will find a job, but let's acknowledge that we just went through the worst recession since the Great Depression, almost 80 years ago. I want to lay to rest that myth that somehow we've got a lot of freeloaders living off this. So when you cut $4 billion a year, $40 billion over 10 years, you are putting hundreds of thousands, millions of people out of a program that ensures that they get the nutrition and the calories that they need to survive and hopefully to become successful, to thrive, and to be able to move off public assistance, in this case, food stamps. Tens of thousands of families just in El Paso. Hundreds of families at Fort Bliss. Active duty military families at Fort Bliss. These are the people that we just sent to Afghanistan. Some of them depend on the SNAP program to put food on the table. So to me, it's unconscionable to allow that to continue. Can we reform the system? Absolutely. Are there cuts that need to be made? I think there are, actually. And I think there's a responsible, intelligent way to do it. Is cutting $4 billion a year, millions of families out of this program the way to do it? Absolutely not. It passed the House Thursday or Wednesday. It will not pass the Senate. It will not be signed into law by the President. Again, federal dysfunction at work. Let me make sure I address two more issues. Our new superintendent addressed our work as a community to ensure that we have true accountability, that we have verifiable data being reported to the Texas Educational Administration, that the Department of Education, which has initiated investigations, follows through on its findings. And the goal, in my mind, is not to seek recrimination or to beat a dead horse or to score points. It is to make sure that, excuse me, that we hold our leadership accountable, that we offer the best possible learning environment for our kids, the greatest possible taxpayer value to those who live within the districts that are affected, that we make sure that people who made bad decisions that cost children their education are out of the system so that they can't hurt anybody, and that we find those people who are denied an education and return them to the system, and that this never happens again. That's all I care about. And I want to make sure that, as awful as the scandal was in our community, that the silver lining is that it never happens again. We set in place the systems, the institutions, people like Mr. Cabrera who will ensure that it doesn't happen again. And not only that, because I think it's a fairly low bar